appreciate the opportunity to kind of tell the story of how Redeemer has grown over the last few years. So I have been at Redeemer now for 8 years. I've been coaching for over 20 years. I've coached at all levels. You know, it started off back at St. Mary's High School, where in Hamilton, Ontario, where I went as a student. And that's where I first started to coach. Led to, you know, opportunities with Blessed Sacrament club basketball, Lancaster Magic club basketball in the area, and you know, just spent a lot of time at St. Mary's, and then actually helped out for a year at McMaster, and then eventually landed this job at Redeemer. So I am in my 8th year at Redeemer. I still am a high school teacher, teaching back at St. Mary's where I went. And so basically, you know, when trying to decide, okay, I've got an opportunity to do a presentation here at clinic, what would I talk about? So the easy answer was to choose program building. And the reason why I thought that was easy was, you know, in 2011, the year before I was at Redeemer, their school record in wins was 3 wins for, you know, Division I competition. So there wasn't much tradition there, and we've kind of built ourselves up over the last few years into a pretty reputable program. You know, so when I first got to Redeemer, the gym, you can see the picture there, generally was pretty empty. I'm going to be honest, that picture is not from 2011. That's only from a few years ago. It was a Saturday afternoon game over the Thanksgiving long weekend. So we unfortunately didn't have a lot of students on campus for that game. But kind of paints the picture. You know, the gym was relatively empty for most games, and again, we didn't have a strong tradition. So, you know, over the years, now you can see kind of what our gym looks like on a regular basis, and it's often talked about within our league that, you know, we have the best fan support in the province. Maybe it's the best atmosphere in the country to play in. You know, our facilities are fairly humble. The gym is not huge, but it is packed. It is loud. We have great community support, great student body support. And, you know, over the last 4 years now, we've basically averaged, you know, a top 5 finish, making it to the tournament over the last 4 years. Even have hosted a playoff game, and to do that the last 3 years in the OCAA West is quite the feat, because our division is so strong. So I figured, you know, that was the route I would go in this presentation. You know, talking about strategies, like there's so many great coaches that are doing presentations here on different strategies, different techniques, that kind of stuff. So I was hoping to do something maybe a little bit different, hoping that it would be something that could apply to all levels. So whether you're starting a new club team or AU team, maybe you're starting at a new high school that you haven't been at before. You know, it could be a new job at a post-secondary school. It could even be like, maybe you just want to hear our story and kind of relate to your own story and have some good memories of what you've done with your own program. So I'm hoping that it will appeal to everybody. You know, and when you talk about program building, you have to look at the long haul. It's not an easy task. It does take some time, a lot of commitment, a lot of dedication. You know, there's a lot of new coaches that come into the league, and yeah, there are some that have great success right off the bat. In our OCAA conference, you know, in the last 3 years, we've had 2 coaches that have won big in their first year. You know, Jay McNeely, 3 seasons ago at Seneca, they won the national title in his first season. It's a remarkable feat. This year, George Brown under Jason Dawkins, they win the OCAA title. Didn't obviously have the chance to go to the CCA national championship because of everything that was going on. But, you know, congratulations to those guys. And again, that's rare, though, that somebody comes in their first year and they have that much success right off the bat. So we have to look at, okay, well, how can we, you know, build ourselves up? And so another reason why I chose this topic was it's something that I experienced. So I don't want to sit here and take credit for, you know, what Redeemer has done or where we've gotten to, you know, and obviously it's still a work in progress. But I was fortunate enough to kind of experience it through my own career. So, you know, I played for Joe Razzo in both high school and in university. And so I witnessed program building firsthand. It was great to listen to Joe talk last night and talk about, defense and how you use it within a scouting report. And I just felt so comfortable listening to it all because it was all the stuff that I went through. Joe took a St. Mary's program that was basically non-existent when he first got there, and eventually built that program out with hard work and with having his coach Pat Papilia help Joe coach, and Pat Papilia also coached me in high school and helped me coach to start my career. So he was a great mentor for both of us. But Joe took that St. Mary's team, not a lot of tradition, had never won, and then built it up to an OFSA winning program. Then Joe gets his opportunity to coach at Mac. And it's not like Mac was a bad team; they were a good team. They'd been in the playoffs, but he took a good university team and he turned it into a perennial powerhouse. The 90s, mid 90s were ruled by McMaster. So I learned a lot from Joe. Obviously learned a lot from Pat as well, but that Joe's been a huge influence in terms of my coaching career. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about is basically become because of Joe. So thank you to Joe. And, I hope you enjoy hearing about our journey and kind of looking at just some of the things that I think are the key steps moving forward in this journey. So first of all, know yourself and know your environment. So you need to be true to yourself. I think otherwise you're going to burn out. You see a lot of young coaches and maybe they want to emulate who their coach was or who their favorite coach is. And I don't know if that's going to be successful in the long run. So like I said, Joe was a huge influence on me as a coach. He still is a huge influence on me as a coach. I think when I started, I think I tried to be just like Joe. And in the end, I don't know if that worked for me. So now where I still see the game, think about the game, plan for the game, the way that Joe had taught me. I think my style of coaching is a little bit different, and I think it's more true to myself, which has allowed me to, I think, enjoy a little bit more success for myself. So you need to establish your core beliefs, and you have to stick true to them. That has to stand true, and that's your beliefs about your gameplay, but that's your beliefs about the team culture, environment, all of that kind of stuff that you develop. And so we see a lot of young coaches maybe not get their full opportunity to be in a program for a long time. A lot of turnover with young coaches. And I think part of that is not maybe knowing your environment. So your environment is going to be, your athletic director and your athletic department and the school itself and the upper administration. But also your roster. That if you're coming into a new job, the roster that you inherit, you need to understand what works, what doesn't work in your environment. It's sad when coaches don't get an opportunity to continue to build on something, because there's some conflict with, maybe their ideologies and the school's ideologies, or, the way, they carry themselves or prioritize things. So I think it's very important to know yourself, establish your own beliefs, your core beliefs, but also know your environment. And that's not to say that you bend on what you believe in, but you've got to make sure that there's a good working relationship there. So I think that's an important first step, and that's even before you step into the gym with everybody. You need to identify your challenges. So knowing your limitations is important, but setting your goals really high, I think, is also important. So for us, to make this relatable, our challenges at Redeemer University when we started, we were Redeemer University College. So we had college in our name until actually this winter. The school has gone through a process, and now college is not part of our name. We are a degree granting school, so it's Redeemer University. But that was a challenge in itself, being called Redeemer University College, playing in the college league. So I would go out to recruit athletes, and constantly having to explain that, no, we're not going to offer you a college diploma, and you can't have the college admissions courses, that you're going to have university courses, but no, we're not playing in the same division as Mac and Brock and Guelph and those schools in the OUA West, sorry. So that was a bit of a limitation right off the bat. Redeemer's private faith-based school, great place to be, great community, but with that comes a higher cost of tuition, and then the faith component. It would actually add a smaller pool that you can recruit from. You can't just recruit everybody, because there is, being private school, there is a faith component behind it. So again, university and college league I kind of already talked about, and then not having any history or tradition of winning. So to me, those were all challenges right off the bat that we're going to have to look to overcome. But I didn't want to make our goals small. So our immediate goals right off the bat were to make the playoffs, and then within 5 years, I wanted to make sure that we were contending for a CCAA title. It didn't quite happen that way. So our first year, we went 7-13, and there was some excitement around the school because we had crushed the school record for wins, which was fantastic. But in the end, we still fell short of our first goal. Second year, we made some progress. We had one less team in our division, so we ended up going 7-11. Second year in a row, we're one game out of a playoff spot. So we didn't make our goal, and we knew it was going to be a challenge coming in, but that was something that we were going to push for, and it helped us to motivate our group. And then our third year, we finally made the playoffs, which was fantastic. Fourth year, we actually took a little small step back, but then our fifth year, we made it. A huge accomplishment to make the playoffs, but we're already behind where we had set for our goals. So I was hoping in that fifth year we're contending for a CCAA title. We've made it to the playoffs. We've made it to the OCAA tournament each year afterwards. We haven't won that OCAA title yet, so that means we haven't been able to contend for the CCAA title. That's okay. We've set our goals high, and we're going to continue to work for them until we get them. We're definitely not going to lower the bar. Next, and again, these are all thoughts, going into before you start your job. So surrounding yourself with trusted people. And so I got images here of all the people that have helped me coach along the way. But I thought that was really, really important to get started off with people that I knew and that I trusted to start. I'm going to talk about expanding your coaching, your coaching staff and challenging, ideas, that kind of thing. But to start, I wanted to make sure that I had guys that I knew, that I trusted, that were going to teach the game the way I would teach it, basically. And so, two guys right off the bat. Sean Savern here, he was the first guy that jumped on with me. Sean was a player for me at St. Mary's in high school. Played on the first team I ever coached in high school. And then Sean, once he was done university, he came back and volunteered his time to coach at St. Mary's with me. So now I knew I had a guy that I had taught, that had taught with me, and I knew that was somebody that was going to be very trustworthy and go along with everything that I had believed. The second guy that helped me start was Ches Piccini. So Ches and I played together. We played together at St. Mary's. We played together at McMaster. So again, I knew Ches. I knew I could trust Ches because Ches was my protector when we played. Ches was always good if you had somebody hassling you and you needed to run them off of a screen. Ches was your man. But again, having somebody like Ches who was taught to see the game the way I saw it, had the same values, same belief system. These were two guys that really helped me to kind of create our new culture of Redeemer basketball and what it looked like, and then we added some outside guys. So Craig Steele coached at Niagara College, coached at Brock, coached a bunch of high school teams, and Tom Lazich, he's a longtime Hamilton high school coach. So these guys come in and now they start giving us some different perspectives, right? We developed relationships with them. So, I'd known Tom. He did help at St. Mary's for a little bit, so that there was a bit of a relationship there. So I knew I could trust Tom. He vouches for Craig, but it was great now to have somebody else who could give you a little different perspective. This is what I saw when I was at Brock, or these are things that we did when we were at Niagara. So it would allow us to kind of expand the way we saw the game, but also could help validate some of the ways that we saw and taught the game. And then I've had a lot of graduates Mike Dua, John Waldo were players from Redeemer that were great additions to our staff. Divya Rayo, still on our staff. Many of you may know him from Blood, Sweat, and Tears training. So again, gives us a much different perspective, different look at the game. And then I've added also recently Zach Angus, who came and played for a year for me at Redeemer Teachers College, but I got to coach Zach in high school. Doyle Anthony, who's actually the son-in-law of Joe Razzo, another family connection. But here's a guy that I've never coached with, didn't play for Joe. So he's given us some different viewpoints, different ideas, but he's been a tremendous addition to our staff. And then this year, we're going to add Nick Green, who is basically our starting point guard this year. He's been a 5-year starter at Redeemer, super smart guy, and we're happy to add him. But again, having that trusted support right off the start allowed us to lay a foundation, and then we kind of expanded our coaching staff after that. Again, so that's going in before we were even going to start recruiting a glue guy is big. You need talent. Obviously, talent is going to help you to win games. But if you're just chasing talent, a lot of times that can leave you kind of empty-handed, and especially if you're in a situation like ours. Redeemer is a school of 700 students. So up until 2 years ago, we never had a tryout, because we would hold tryouts, but we wouldn't have anybody there. So we were only getting the players that we recruited. So, coming from a smaller school, again, not having much of a tradition of winning, it would be hard for me to just go and attract athletes right off the bat. I needed to find somebody who I could trust, who was going to keep the team together, who would really believe in the system. So Calvin Turnbull was that guy. I met Calvin the year I coached at McMaster, and he was a role player as a kind of an undersized post in the OUA. But just a guy who worked tirelessly. So, I asked Calvin if he wanted to come to Redeemer, and he did. And, Teachers College was there for him, so it worked out great for him. But having a guy like that to kind of enforce everything that you want to teach is fantastic. So, I got the quote, "You can lead a horse to water, but you need those horses to drink the water." And you need players that will help you to kind of establish your culture, your foundation, and all those buzzwords. Like for us, again, like 700 students at Redeemer, recruiting against the bigger schools. And for me, it's not even recruiting against our league rivals. I'd have to recruit against a school like McMaster locally, right? Brock and Guelph or other, close schools in our vicinity. So if I'm just chasing super talents, I'm probably going to come up dry. So finding a guy like Calvin, who ended up being like a 3-time league all-star, great work ethic, great with the scouting report, like just kind of had a little bit of everything. And he had an outstanding career, but I really give him a lot of credit for our program getting to where it was. So I thought that was very important. So then changing the culture, and I'm not a huge fan of the term culture or the word culture, but it's out there so much. And I think that is something that needed to happen. So and how that happens, I think, is creating accountability. That's the biggest thing. Your glue guy is gonna help with that. Knowing yourself, and being true to those beliefs, that's gonna help with that. So how do we do that? For us, practice was the first thing. And again, these are lessons that I got from Joe and Pat Papilia in high school. Practice has to be your number one priority. We talk to the guys every year before the season starts. We lay out what I think are, what the priorities need to be if you're going to be a varsity athlete. Your faith, your family, that goes without saying. That actually doesn't even show up on the chart. That stuff's obviously the most important thing in your life. But after that, your priorities have to maintain. School is number one, basketball is number two, then your social life, social activities, that's number three. Because if you don't have school, you end up without basketball. You end up without your social, life and activities and the things that you would get from being a student at a school. But with that being said, school is never an excuse to miss practice. So practice is the most important part of the season. Basically, that's where you're doing all your teaching. So, and yes, if there's a dire situation that a student needs to take a night off of practice because of something school related, we make those decisions as they come up. But as a general rule, you cannot miss practice for school. If you have night class at the same time, you're going to night class, obviously, because school is number one. But we're trying to avoid students coming to us saying, "Sir, I've got a test tomorrow. Can I have the night off because I got to study?" Well, part of what we're trying to teach is these students to become young men and to be able to be accountable for everything that they're going to do in their life. And time management is such a big part of that. So you have to backtrack your week and say, okay, well, I need X amount of hours to study for this test. I know that practice is at this time during the week. So I've got to build in these other times to study. And over the course of my career at Redeemer, I think our academic standing has gotten a little bit better every year. But again, without students having to miss practice. So we make sure that school's number one, basketball is number two. And then in terms of practice, like changing the culture again was, at Redeemer, when I first got there, we're asked, okay, when do you want to practice? How often do you want to practice? We want to practice every day. And that was a bit of a shock. Like, teams weren't practicing on Fridays when I first got there. Practices between the end of exams and Christmas break were unheard of, you know what I mean? Or coming back early from Christmas holidays to get some practice in and, before the second semester starts. Like these are all things that we had to establish. And, obviously there was, I wouldn't say a fight, but like some of the guys that I inherited on that team were a little bit shocked by this. But again, having a guy like Calvin to help me set all of this foundation and the coaches, that was big. So, that was one of the big beliefs that I was taught, and that I think any coach obviously would value. So that's been important. Off-season training, the fact that we were doing some stuff in the summertime, whether it's skill sessions or scrimmages, that kind of stuff, that was all important. But again, so creating that accountability was big. And the biggest thing, and it's something that we're going to continue to work on, is the accountability is most valuable when it comes from within the team. So yes, the players can be accountable to me, but it is way more valuable when they hold each other accountable. So those were some of the things that we kind of look to implement. I'm sure everybody's watched The Last Dance now. I've got the Michael Jordan quote there that champions do not become champions when they win the event, but in all the hours, weeks, and months and years that they spend preparing for it. And that's, basically what we've been kind of working towards here as we go. A key step for me has been not leaving any stone unturned. And that's big in terms of our recruiting. Again, being a smaller school, not a lot of walk-ons are coming to tryouts. The last couple of years, we're starting to get a few, which is fantastic, great to see. So every email that comes in, I make sure I respond to it. I don't have the luxury to, kind of look at mass emails and block them off. If it's a mass email, you can tell the student's fishing. I still make the effort to reach out, find out if the student actually has a real interest in Redeemer, and then explore things from there. But I can't just let anything go by, just because of our student population, basically. And so that's also led to, I've had to take some chances. I've had to take some chances on some players, and I'm okay with giving students a second chance. But at the same time, I got to stick to my core beliefs and values about how I would like the team run. So that's led us to not asking some players to return after a year. not to kick them out of school, but tell them that, maybe I'm going to look at a different option next year. Or, we've got to be very honest at the end of the year is where we think people stand. It doesn't happen often. It has happened a few times because we want to make sure that the program is still going in the right direction. So we had those issues a little earlier in my career, but I think we have such a strong community on our team now that it's not as much of a stretch to maybe give a player a second chance. We had a player join us this year who I was giving a second chance to. When I met with him beforehand, I wasn't afraid to kind of state my concerns about what I had witnessed of him as a player moving in. And he turned out to be a model student, model athlete with our team. He was such a fantastic guy with our team. But I think our team culture, the way the guys treat each other and hold each other accountable, I think that was a huge part of that. And then taking chances, I think you got to take some chances even with your scheduling. If you're club AU, maybe you're looking at a tournament you're punching a little bit above your weight class, right? High school tournaments, yeah, you can play in tournaments where you're going to be competitive, but don't be afraid to throw one in there that, you might take a bit of a beating in it. That's going to be a great challenge for you. Done that at Redeemer, tried to get a lot of games against OUA, U Sports competition. We've done that by playing some games in the States, and then you can always evaluate and look back and say, okay, was this game worth it? Was this travel time or going across the border with the hassles, with the border and all that kind of stuff? Was it worth it? Is it benefit? Is it going to be beneficial to our guys, to our program moving forward? And you can make that evaluation and move on. So I think you need to explore all options, basically. Instilling the belief that every game can be won. Okay, so yes, you don't measure all of your success on wins alone, but at the same time, winning matters. Obviously, especially when you get into the collegiate level or the pro level, you have to win. Winning matters. But I think a good practice, especially younger players, younger teams, is you got to make the team believe that they can win every game. So I remember in our very first year, our first real game was on the road. We were playing Rochester College in the States, in Port Huron. They're an NAIA school, very good program. And so the first night we go down, and I've got a little bit of a scouting report. Joe talked about scouting reports last night, so I dug up what I could. And we went in and we got blown out. We were down 50. And one of the things I remember at the end of the game was the coach saying to me, "You know what, coach, you're gonna be just fine," because we were down 50, and I'm imploring my guys to continue to play with 30 seconds left, defend the ball, 20 seconds left. Don't stop playing. And I think so. Their coach recognized that. We come back, we play them the next day, and now we got a little bit more information on them. We can go through their actions a little bit. So, a little bit more detailed of a scout. We end up losing by 12. So, and again, it's not, we didn't win, and we want to win at any opportunity we can. But I think the mindset of our guys kind of grew at that point a little bit, just because, hey, we believe that if we're going to do, A, B, and C, when they do A, B, and C, we've got a chance to stop. We've got a chance to score them in the situation. And that instantly instilled a little bit of belief with our guys. That year, first year, we played Algoma in the second semester. Algoma beat us by, I think, 24 at their place in the first semester. And at this point, Algoma was a really strong OCAA team, ranked nationally as well. And we beat them in our place in the second semester. And going through the game plan, leading into it, and, some tweaks to our defensive assignments and that. And, we made our guys believe, and they pulled it off, and that was huge. In our second year, another one that stuck out to me was, so we're playing Mohawk, and Mohawk was, recently off of a national championship. They're a really, really strong team. This team was loaded this year. And so we play them to open conference at their place in their new gym. And It's a tie game with, essentially under 2 minutes to go. We end up losing by 5. I walk in the change room at the end, and our guys were cheerful, joyful in the change room afterwards. And I wasn't having any of that. Like, you need to believe that you can win. You had the opportunity to win. And our guys need to know, like, you have to take advantage of those opportunities. So even though we were greatly mismatched at that point, there was not really a moral victory, unless you can get that W. So, I'm not saying you got to tear strips off guys up and down or berate them, but like, they need to know that it wasn't acceptable, that they had a chance to win and they didn't let it happen. Right. So, learning or losses, they're not the end of the world. Yes, you're going to learn from them, but just don't accept them. Just don't accept them. Right. And to go back to that, like, we talk about winning matters. Like, if you look at the crowd here and you look at the expression on our guys' faces, this is after a big win against Humber this year. Like, you can't tell me that winning doesn't matter. And not only, winning doesn't matter, but like, when you're prepared for it and you've executed, you've played really hard and then you are successful, that's when teams have the most amount of fun. So another key thing I found in terms of our, building up of our program was our adaptability. And that could come in a wide range of areas. If you're at a bigger school, you're a really, really successful program, you're going to be able to recruit the guys that you need to fill certain positions. But if you're at a smaller school or you're just getting started off, you're going to have to be somewhat adaptable in the way you teach things, because you want to make sure that you're maximizing the strength and talents of the players that you have. If you're going to try and force everybody to play your certain way, your certain style of offense, but that's not suited to the guys that you have, you're not going to have as much success. So you might have to be flexible while still staying true to your core beliefs, right? So, maybe you're a man-to-man guy, but you might have to sprinkle in some zone. Maybe you like to run a lot of sets, but your team can't handle, running lots of sets with, a lot of different counters and that. So maybe you pick up the pace of the game. Like, maybe you're going to post up some guards. And I know Coach Brad Campbell's already done a whole session on posting up guards, which seems to be a little bit of a lost art these days in our game. Maybe your bigs are, leading the break off the dribble. Nate McKibben talked about that last night, when their bigs, working on a bust out dribble. Your big shooting the three, which is, you have to be able to be a little bit adaptable in the way that you play, again, to maximize your strengths. You've got to be a little bit flexible in terms of your recruiting. So when I first took on the job at Redeemer, being a teacher in the Hamilton Catholic board, I thought, Hamilton Catholic, well, that's going to be my, my gold mine. It's such a great league. It's so competitive every year. There's got to be guys in this league that, aren't maybe getting the right opportunities or right looks at the youth sport division. Maybe I can get them to come to Redeemer. And that didn't prove to be the gold mine I thought it would be. So I had to look at some different places and different ways of reaching out. And, be a little bit more flexible and adaptable in terms of who we were recruiting or where we were looking for players. Our coaching staff, I already talked, in some depth about that, about getting some different voices in, so that way it gives you a different way to look at a game, might get you to add something a little bit different. It also might help to validate the way you see things when you have those discussions with your coaches. So having coaches that are just yes men, they might help you and your ego, but that in the end, you need somebody who's going to challenge you a little bit. And I thought Joe had a great point last night. If you're a young coach, bring in an older coach who can mentor you. And if you're an older coach, bring in a young coach that can challenge you as well, give you some different thoughts. So, and then steadily increasing your goals, your strength of schedule, set that bar at a certain level, and you're always reaching further ahead.
Just a question here from the attendees. So as you're working through recruiting, what role, if any, do parents play in the path of coming to Redeemer? Do you feel that players are old enough now that parents don't impact that as much as maybe they would at a younger age, or how do you vet through parents?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it kind of depends on the situation. So, when I first started at the job, to make sure that we spend some time with our family, especially in the off season, because we're so tied up and within the season. I am blessed that my wife Krista fully supports me. My 3 kids, my niece, my nephew, my both my parents, my mother-in-law. Like I have tremendous family support there. They are part of this. If you look closely enough at the pictures of the stands, you're going to see these people here all the time, which is great. Your alumni base. And again, so at Redeemer, and not to take away from any of the people that played there before us, but there wasn't as much of a tradition there. So there wasn't as much of a sense of engagement with the team, or a connection with the team. Whereas now, like we're really starting to build it up because I think, some guys have enjoyed their time with us. Success obviously helps with that. And so now we're getting a lot of great alumni support. We when we travel, we've got guys who, are from those communities that are coming to watch us play. And then obviously we get, a great chunk of guys coming back to watch us play at home. Student body, obviously that's a role of, your athletic department. But I remember talking to Charles Kissy a few years back when he was at Brock, because Brock had done such a great job when Charles was there of getting their student body involved. And, their student body was traveling to away games, and it was fantastic. And his message, not to steal his thunder, but, he talked about his time a little bit when, I think when he was with the Raptors with Dwayne Casey and all that. There was a lot of talk about like the games within the game. So like having something for the fans to be doing while they're at the game is big. So it's more than just basketball. It's like an event. And now that's true for our place at our school. Game nights are packed with the students. Our away games, we get great support. We played a preseason game at MAC last year, and it was early. It was in late September. So there's not a lot of people at the game, but we had 8 or 9 guys come. They had Royals painted on their chest, and so just to have that support follow you is fantastic. And then including your student body. So yes, that's coming from the athletic department and their promotions and that, but a lot of that's on your own guys too. So if your team is out supporting the other athletes, they're in turn going to support you. We talk about that in high school all the time. Like the best way for high school kids to have an enjoyable high school experience is to get involved in as many things as they can in the school, but then support all of your friends and classmates. So maybe you're not into the arts, but you should go see the drama play. You know what I mean? Or you should go see the Christmas concert. You want to support people, they will in turn support you. So, and it's honestly, it's a little bit easier at Redeemer being such a small, tight-knit community of only, 700 people, small campus. It's easy for the students to get to know one another. But the support that we get for our basketball team is fantastic. And then the community. So how can you get the community involved? And, these are not groundbreaking ideas, but, having rep teams or house league teams play games at halftime at your games are big, because then they get to see, the big crowd, how loud the gym is, and they get to play in front of a packed gym, which maybe they don't normally get to do, and their parents get to see it, and maybe they haven't had an opportunity to come to a game. So ideas like that are great. I know for ourselves, we've had like a year-end, somewhat informal team banquet, but there are some local people that we invite to join us with that, because we want to keep those people engaged. Not just because we want their engagement, like they've supported us throughout the years so well that, we want to make sure that that we acknowledge that their support and how much that they mean to us. So even games now for us, like on our reading week, a lot of times that'll be our last regular season game of the conference, or it might even be a crossover playoff game, and our gym is still full, and it's still pretty loud because we've got great community support coming out, even without half the students there on campus. All it takes is a couple loud kids. Like my kids are, I've heard coaches talking about loud early and often. Well, my kids have the loud and often part down, and they use that at the gym, which is fantastic. And you get the community people involved as well. So I think that's a big part of it. And then lastly, asking for help. And that's why we're all here. These clinics have been fantastic. I've already learned so much or appreciated so much. And it's all, some people are very technical with, whether it's their offense or their patterns or the game planning, or, Coach Steph Barry's stake matrix blew my mind the other night. So it's great. Coaches obviously love to share. That's why we're all here. Doesn't just have to be basketball coaches. You can, cross-reference with coaches from other sports is a great idea. And coaches from all levels can be very, very valuable. I know I've gone to recruit at some high school games and have seen a wrinkle or a set here that I've liked and I've stolen from high school coaches. So you don't just have to reach out to the coaches that are above you. You can reach out to all coaches. I think getting outside perspective is very important. So whether it's trusted family members or friends that aren't necessarily coaches, maybe they're not even basketball people, but having a talk with them and getting their insights can often be valuable, because it might bring something to the table that you've never really thought of before. And then lastly, officials. So yes, ask the officials for help. They're a resource. They're not there to hurt the game. They're there to promote the game, to help the game. So I know, at the end of the season, I've called some officials, that the tournament convener type thing, just to see what they say, or what have they seen, and try and learn from their perspective. And not for any other reason, but just to learn from their perspective. I know Mario Sufaletta in Hamilton is a great resource of mine, and I got a great relationship with him. And he's somebody that I trust and I value his opinion, and then I think it's a mutual respect. So I think that's all I have at this point. I hope maybe you found it entertaining, or maybe it's something that you can take back if you're in that position where you're starting something new. Obviously I'll take questions. If you want to reach out to me, I've got my email address there, and my Twitter handle and Instagram handle. Thank you.
Oh, great, Coach, and some fantastic insights. I appreciate you giving us the deep dive into your program. So I'll throw a couple questions at you, and then we'll take some from the attendees before we wrap up, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, fantastic.
Sure. So being an out-of-school coach, as you said, you're a high school teacher during the day, and then you're rolling over to Redeemer after that. How do you, I know, for lack of a better term, how do you combat that, not being in the school as often as, say, an in-school coach would be? How do you get around that touch time with athletes?
Yeah, so the toughest part for us is, the individual workouts, the weight training sessions. We're fortunate at the school that there is a strength and conditioning coach. We're fortunate that there is a lot of free gym time for our guys. We've used Google Docs, so we're asking our guys to get up, as many shots as they can, or an X amount of shots every week. We ask them to track their makes throughout the week, so that and again, now they're holding each other accountable, as opposed to being in the gym necessarily with, myself or one of our assistants for all of their workouts. So, they're getting their extra time and their extra touches, but a lot of that time is going to be on their own. And our assistant coaches have been good, especially Divya. He's good at putting in the extra time with the skill sessions, but that's just a luxury I don't have, to be at the gym to make sure guys are there, weight training, putting in the extra shots. So we say we have the documents, but a lot of that is the team policing itself.
Right. Then as you, the first moment, I guess, when you knew that you were taking over the program, maybe walk us through the first two or three things that you did to really familiarize yourself or prepare yourself to take it over.
So I had, Redeemer not being a huge school, I had some familiarity with the school. So when I was at St. Mary's, we were at the old teachers college on the Hamilton campus. We didn't have a gym big enough to play in. So when I started my high school career, we actually played our home games at Redeemer. So I was familiar with the building, with the campus. My wife had previously coached soccer at the school. So again, I was familiar with the school. And then in the process of me getting the job, the idea had approached me about taking on the job. So I had gone to watch them play at Mohawk, and I, sat down with Dave Mantle, our athletic director, and had a chat with him, and got, pretty excited about the opportunity. I talked to Joe about it. He thought it was a great opportunity, because you're kind of starting from the bottom, and it's exciting to see where you can take a program, when you really have no pressure, which has been kind of nice.
Great. Next one from our attendees here. So, hey, Coach, do you have any specific practice standards that you can share with us? What does practice look like on a day-to-day, and how, if any, has your practice changed over the years?
Yeah, great questions. So I'd say, again, the first standard is you have to be there. Joe's always said, you don't go writing a test without going to class for the week, right? So you've got to be at practice so that you're ready, you're preparing, you're learning what you're going to need to do within the class. Our practice planning is I would say similar to what Coach Aaron was talking about the other night, in terms of your dynamic and all that stuff going forward. We've tried to evolve over the last few years. So an idea that Doyle brought back, one of our assistant coaches is coaching with Victor Razzo now with the River Lions, and the idea of a compete night. So we have one night a week where our practice is basically just scrimmages all night. We have the clock out. There's set scrimmages. There might be some rules within those scrimmages. Okay, you're going to, in this situation, you're going to defend the ball screen in this way. Second scrimmage, maybe we're defending ball screens, in a different option. Or it could be offensive set or transition. So there's some themes to it. But the feedback I got from our guys is they love compete nights, which is great because, Joe talked about whole part whole last night, and I've always used a lot of breakdown stuff in our practices, a lot of, smaller games, 3-on-3 drills, 1-on-1s, 4-on-4 shell, that kind of stuff. But guys want to get out and play. And so we've tried to add that more to our practice now, and always having the score clock up. That's helped me with, instead of fiddling with the practice plan to see what the time is, how much time you have to work on a drill. And then just always having that score going. So, and the other thing I would say about practice is we always have winners and losers for every drill, and you have to validate your wins for every drill. I think a lot of coaches are doing that kind of stuff anyways, but